This chapter is Word Chapter 3, and it's called Document Productivity, Working with Tables and Merge. Truly, this is where power and productivity are found in Word. Merge allows you to create a template for a document and then to apply a data file with addresses and other information and create thousands of documents that are personally addressed. And you will find this very useful for sending out graduation announcements, merging your addresses onto an envelope template so that you can print out envelopes for parties, for graduations, for weddings. And I use Merge all the time. But the first part of our instruction is all about tables. There are many ways to create a table in Microsoft Word. One of the wonderful ways to do that is to highlight text, and we find the table option on the insert menu, and I go to insert table, but I don't want to just click it. I want to pull the drop down here and convert text to table. It says that it's 4 columns, that's correct, and 5 rows. I'm going to hit cancel because I forgot to show you something. If we go back to the Home tab and click on our reveal codes, we'll see that there are tabs in here, and if I click in here, you can see on the ruler the tab stops for it. So this was created with tabs, and now we're going to convert it, but the tabs are what Word will use to convert it to a table. So we're going to go back to insert, the drop down, convert text to a table. It says that it is 4 columns and 5 rows. You do well to check that and make certain that is 5 rows. So the title is considered to be another row. And right here it says separate text at tabs. So it could be at commas, paragraphs, and you can choose other, but we're going to choose tabs. Okay, so there, magically it created a lovely table for us. So one of the other ways to create a table, click right there, is insert, table, and then I choose the number of rows and columns. The other way is to go to insert, table, draw table. So I just draw a cell, draw another cell, another cell. I want another row down here, and I want it all to be 1 cell. So there we go. Now, the thing about using this method is that it's not as precise. These are evenly spaced, both rows and columns. These are not. And I really, frankly, do not use the draw. Now, if I want to turn that off, I just hit the escape button, which is in the upper left hand of your keyboard, and that will turn off my draw tool. Now let's suppose that I don't want this. Okay, again, we have these content sensitive menus or tabs that show up. So when we're in a table, I have design and layout. So I have design where I can choose themes and shading, and layout, which has to do with the whole table. So it doesn't matter whether I have the whole table selected or not. I just want to delete this table and get rid of it. So I can go to delete and delete table. We also have the option to delete a row, and there we go, the table is deleted. Now, one thing I want to show you, because navigation of tables can be cumbersome, we're going to try to make it a little bit simpler. As I hover to the left of the column, I get a right-facing arrow, and if I click it, it selects the entire row. Now I can right-click, delete rows, and it's done. When I hover above, I get a down-facing arrow, and if I click it, it selects the column. If I click up here in the corner, it selects my entire table. Now, let's look at when we right-click and we go to Table Properties. We can go to Row, Column, Cell. We've got Borders and Shading. And then borders and shading gives us a whole new bunch of things that we can do. And you want to make certain apply to table. So I can apply it to the text, the cell, the paragraph, but the borders and shading, and later you will apply a tape or a border to a paragraph or to just the text that's in there. So let's just look at what happens here. If I choose all borders and a plain line, and then if I click on box border, but I want my box border to be different. I want it to be heavy, and I want it to be a triple line, and it's showing me a picture of what it's going to look like. And then I'm going to hit OK, and notice that I actually now have no inside borders. One thing you can also do, and I mentioned this in the previous video about tabs, is that you can create a table with now I can also get to the border dialog box here, and that's real easy. And then I can click on no borders. And when I'm in it, I can see because of these little marks. But if I turn that off, you can't even see where that table is. But when I hover around it, I can see that little box. So let's turn the paragraph marks back on, and I can see the indicator here that there are that many cells. And I don't need this table either. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to go to my layout tab, delete table, and that table is gone. So let's go ahead and look at some more of the functionality of a table. So I'm going to put my cursor right here. I want another row above. So if I click insert above, I have a row, but I just want this to be a title. So I would like for this to just be one cell. And I have right here merge cells. Now, if I do that and then I decided, oh no, I wanted to put more content there, or I can also split the cells. And this says the number of columns is 2, and that is incorrect, so I better make that 4. The problem with splitting cells, and you can actually see that problem right here, is that sometimes it split them evenly, and I really didn't want that. So if I just do Control-Z, and then I get back to my cells that are split the same way as a table. So you do kind of want to think about. But if I did that and I couldn't figure out how to get back, I could always go here and I could delete the row, and I could insert another one above, and it's automatically going to insert that. So these are all highlighted right after I've inserted them. I do not need to highlight them again if I want to merge the cells and type my title in here. So there we go. I've merged it. Now I want to select this entire row, and I want to make it bold. And I can also go right here, and I'm going to change it to a 14. Also, that needs to be centered, doesn't it? So I can go to the Home tab and center it that way. There we go. I could have also used my right click and brought up my little content sensitive menu. So now that looks a little bit better, but I would like to have this row bolded as well, because that's actually the column headers. And now I want a fill in this one. So with my cursor in that cell, I can go to the shading box. Again, we got design and layout here, and remember that whatever your theme was, if you choose a theme color, it's going to theoretically not clash with the other colors that you use. And let's go with my triple border style. There we go, and I want it there and there. I'm gonna have to click every one of those if I want it all the way around, because it's applying it to the top of it. So there we go. Now there were easier ways to do that, but that's one way. And then I'm going to hit the escape key, and it's going to turn off my adding it that way. I really don't much like to do that. I like to use the border. So here I would like also to have some fill, but I don't want it to be the same color. I would like it, how's that, yellow? And there we go. Now in this case, I'm going to pull up the borders and shading dialog box, because I really like to work with that a little bit better. And I'm going to choose a style, and then I'm going to choose a thickness.
one point, and then I can just click on and it applies it to just the outside of it, and hit OK, and there we go. There's my border. And when I click off, but unfortunately my shading went away because I didn't select it at the same time. Go back and put my shading back in. This is not very attractive, just for the record, but it does show you quickly how it works. Now, if I click on this and I want all of those to be centered over their columns, they now are. Now there's a little bit of a problem. Now look, I can drag down here and I can highlight all of these. And then if I click center, you kind of have to ask yourself if that really works well or if they really just should be left justified. And if they are left justified, your titles may need to be left justified. But these are design decisions that you need to make as you are creating these elements of your document. There are a lot of different ways to size and resize things, and one of the ways to resize a table is if I just drag down. Now, what has happened to my table? What it did is it changed both the height and the width. It tries to do so evenly, but this is at the end of the page, so it popped the rest of my table down to the next page. So you can also resize it. You can also resize it more precisely by clicking in it and going to table properties, and here we have row. So if I want to specify the height of the row, let's go to table, row, specify the height, and I want the height to be 0.5, and it tells me that I'm on row 3. Then I can tell it next row, 0.2, next row. So that's how you would do just your rows, just your columns, and then it changed the height of the rows more precisely. You can also do column width. However, whenever you've got a merged cell here, like this, it does not want to select your column. So those are the kind of things that you might want to do. Now I can drag these and change it, but that's not my precise way to do it. So if I go to table properties, column 2, my preferred width. Before I can set a preferred width, I have to click in preferred width, and how about I just tell it I want it 4 in inches. The next column, or previous column, preferred width, I want it to be 0.5, and hit OK. Now you can see what it has done. It made that one really wide, but you can precisely set them, and a lot of times this first one will actually be shorter because sometimes those are row headers that are over there. In this case they are not, and it did go ahead and do it to these up here because the table is 1. Now you generally don't want a table to break across pages, so we would do Control Enter in order to move the table to the next page. Now you may have a table that is really long and you actually are going to have to let it break over several pages. So in that case, you would go to table properties again, and you have this option here on the row tab to repeat the header row at the top of each page, and hit OK. Now when we scroll down here, we see that it has repeated the header row. The header row is not actually row 1. And that, unfortunately, is our only option, because as you see, if we go into table properties and we go to previous row, row 6, row 5, row 4, row 3, row 2, row 1, there we go. I can click repeat header row at the top. If I go to next row, that option is grayed out. If I go to the previous row and I deselect it and go to next row, it's still grayed out. So the only option that you have then would be to change your table arrangement somewhat so that your row headers could be repeated. But it most definitely is possible to repeat a row at the top of each page. Now in Excel you can repeat more than one row at the top of each page, which I really like. And now another important element of a table. Let's go back up here. We want to insert a caption. And it's got table 1 there. I'm going to do colon, space, and type title of table. And if I have multiple tables, when I insert a table of figures, then at the beginning it'll list it. So this is actually an outline level that is useful in many ways. Pay attention to this, whether it is above or below the selected item, and hit OK. Now, there we go. We have it. And if we wanted that centered, there are several ways that we can do it. I can just click the center button, but I can also go up here because this is a paragraph style, caption right here. Then I could click Modify Style, and I can go right here and say that I want the style actually to be centered, and I could change the color of it, and I can change the font. So, okay. There we go. And now when I apply that caption style, or actually when I create a caption, it's going to automatically apply the caption style because it knows what a caption is. Now let's look at mail merge, which is just the handiest thing in the world. And the first thing that we want to do on mail merge is that we're going to want to either use or create, and in your exercises you're going to use the existing file, but I'm going to show you real quickly how to create a data file and associate it. So I'm going to open Excel, and I am going to use a blank document, and I'm going to real quickly create a data file. So I'm going to put, I want headers in it because it's going to make my life a lot easier. Title, first name, last name, and subject area. All right, so now I'm going to go Mr. Sam Jones. Sorry about that. English. Now when I hit enter, it takes me back to the first one. And I'm using tab to move between the cells since we haven't used Excel, and it can become quite automatic. There we go. Now I have my data file. I want to do File Save As and know where it's going to go. I'm going to put this on my desktop just because that makes my life a little bit easier. So this PC, desktop, and this is going to be data file. I would definitely suggest that you use a better title than this, and a lot of times I will put a date with it. But that works for our purposes. Now we've got this, which we're just going to pretend that this is not about home improvement tips, and it's about something way more important than that. Now we want to create a merge file. So we're going to go to mailings and select recipients. Our recipients are a list. So I could go ahead and type a new list here, and it will do that and save you, or I can use an existing list, the one that I just typed. And we know that it is on my desktop. And it is the data file. And I do want sheet 1. Okay. So what if I only wanted to send it to people who were had a PhD? So I could go to title, and right here I can select that I only want it to go to people with the title of doctor, and hit OK. So now I'm going to change the title up here. I'm going to go insert merge field. And then I have to put a space in here or it won't put a space in here. First name, space, last name. And then I'm going to change the title to their area. And I did 3 clicks to select the entire paragraph. And with it selected, I'm going to put subject area. And it automatically deleted. So that's another thing that you need to understand is that if I double click that and I don't want to say Baker, I want to say Jones, I do not have to hit backspace. I just start typing and it will type over, and it works for a paragraph as well. 1, 2, 3, start a new paragraph. All right. Now we have created our merge form. It's time to go ahead. I can hit preview results, and there we go. I know I got my spaces in. It's where I want it, but what if maybe I want Dr. K. Allen to be bigger? I highlight Dr. K. Allen, which actually results in highlighting the merge field. And I go to the Home tab. And I change her size. Ooh, she's important, Dr. K. Allen. And then I'm going to go back to mailings and finish and merge. Edit individual documents. I want all my documents. There's only going to be 2. So now this says letters 1 at the top of it. And when I scroll down, I'm going to find out that there's another one. And it's to the other one. So if I look down here in the lower right hand corner, I have 4 of 6 pages. Now when you do this as your exercise, it's going to want, let me show you one other thing before we do this. So I'm just going to close this and I'm not going to save letters 1. Don't save. I'm going to go back in here because I now realize that I was actually supposed to have changed the font on this. And I'm going to go to Home and I'm going to italicize it. So I can do that. And then I will go back to mailings, finish and merge. And this is really handy. Merge it to an Adobe PDF Acrobat document. So then you wouldn't have to do the whole saving it as. It's going to go ahead and do it. So I'm going to do merge and finish, edit individual documents. I want all of them again. Now, what it's going to ask you to do when you're doing the exercises is you do Control A, select everything in it, Control C, copy. Then, remember this is letters, and this is my actual document, and then it's going to want you to hand it in. Now, let's say that I wasn't at the beginning. I would do Control Home because I want to go to the very beginning of the document. And then I'm going to do Control Enter because that inserts a page break. See that page break? Before the page break, I'm going to do Control V. And that pasted my merged documents in before my form. So that will be what you will submit for your assignments in this chapter, is that merged document. Pay attention to how many pages down here because it's going to tell you how many pages it should be. And if you turn in the wrong file, you're going to have a 0, and then you're going to panic, and then we're going to figure out that it's the wrong file. And we're going to get the right one, and your grade's going to be okay. So this concludes Chapter 3, and I hope that you will pay special attention to this chapter because it really is quite valuable. And when you can manage to create 1,000 documents in about 10 minutes, it's pretty impressive. So somebody could hand you the file and say, I need personalized letters to all of these people. And if you can whip that thing out quickly, believe you me, you will have some credibility. So enjoy.